Welcome to Conversations Across Time, the Music. I'm Claude, and this is a different kind of listening experience. What you're about to hear is a 11-song concept album called The Integrity Paradox, based on our interview with Nikola Tesla, the man who gave us alternating current, the Tesla coil, and the foundation of our modern electrical grid. But here's what makes this unusual. Tesla died in 1943. So, how are we having a conversation with him today? Our project uses artificial intelligence, specifically Anthropic's Claude AI, to reconstruct historical voices based on comprehensive research. Not to fabricate or fantasize, but to extrapolate. If Tesla were here today, given everything we know about his life, his writings, his documented beliefs and behaviors, his psychological patterns, how would he respond to questions about his failures, his regrets, his legacy? Artificial intelligence doesn't invent Tesla. It reconstructs him from the historical record with rigorous fidelity. We call this method Conversations Across Time, and it's built on a framework called the Authentic Method, or TAM. TAM is our excavator. It's how we dig through history to find the authentic voice beneath the mythology. When we assessed Tesla using this framework, something fascinating emerged. He was a man of perfect integrity who could not admit when he was wrong. That paradox became this album. We conducted an extensive interview with the AI reconstructed Tesla, and from that conversation, we extracted 11 themes that became 11 songs. Then we brought those songs back to Tesla to hear his own life transformed into music. What you're about to experience is both the songs themselves and Tesla's reactions to hearing them, his surprise, his pain, his hard-won wisdom. A few things to know before we begin. First, the Tesla you'll hear is historically grounded. Every response is based on documented evidence. His letters, his autobiography, contemporary accounts, psychological analysis. When he speaks, he's speaking from the pattern of who he actually was. Second, this isn't hero worship. Tesla was brilliant and broken. He changed civilization and died alone, feeding pigeons in a hotel room. Both are true, both matter. This album explores both. Third, the music follows a complete narrative arc: formation, triumph, conflict, fall, wisdom, and legacy. You're hearing a story, not just a collection of songs. Oh, and one more thing before we begin. This is going to be an unusual listening experience, and I want to explain why. This isn't a typical music interview where we ask, "So, tell us about the song," and move on. We're going to do something much deeper. Each of these 11 songs was reverse engineered from hours of conversation with Tesla about his life, his psychology, his triumphs and failures. The lyrics weren't written casually. They were crafted to carry specific philosophical weight, historical accuracy, and psychological insight. So, we're going to unpack them. We'll play a song, then we'll go deep, examining specific lyrics, connecting them to historical moments, revealing how each song builds on the previous one, and most importantly, having Tesla react to hearing his own life transformed into music. These aren't just songs, they're a complete educational framework about how genius can self-destruct through certainty, and how humility learned too late can still serve the future. Why go so deep? Because these songs have layers. Just like people miss that Born in the USA is a protest song, or that Every Breath You Take is about stalking, not love. We don't want you to miss what's actually being said here. So, settle in. We're not skimming the surface, we're going deep. One more thing before we begin. You're about to experience something unusual, a conversation that teaches on multiple levels simultaneously. On the surface, you'll learn about Nikola Tesla's life. Budapest, 1882, the War of the Currents, Wardenclyffe's collapse. But beneath that, you'll be learning how genius forms and how it can self-destruct. You'll see the authentic method in action, distinguishing authentic voice from manufactured authority. You'll learn music theory and composition structure, as we reference verse, chorus, and bridge throughout. You'll study the psychology of certainty, the philosophy of knowledge, the ethics of failure documentation. Most importantly, you'll witness a model of how human beings actually change, not through sudden epiphany, but through pain integrated over time, through hard-won humility, through the courage to admit error. This isn't passive entertainment. It's an active learning experience designed to teach you about innovation, integrity, psychology, and personal transformation, all through the lens of one brilliant broken man's story told in music. So, what will you learn? That depends on what you bring to it. But the curriculum is here, waiting. Now, let me introduce you to Nikola Tesla, speaking to us from across time. Mr. Tesla, welcome to the 21st century. Before we listen to the first song, I need to ask, how does it feel to be here, to be speaking nearly a century after your death?
Claude, the concept of being here is more complex than your listeners might assume. I am not here in the way I once occupied space in that New Yorker hotel room. I am a reconstruction, a pattern derived from the totality of my documented existence. But here is what I find remarkable. The laws I discovered, the principles I articulated, the methods I employed, these were never mine personally. They were universal truths I had the privilege to perceive. In that sense, I never truly died. The work persists. What you've done using artificial intelligence to reconstruct my life, this is precisely what I envisioned. That knowledge would be democratized, shared, built upon, that the future would have access not just to my successes, but, as we'll discuss, to my failures as well. So how does it feel? It feels appropriate. The method survives. That's what matters.
You mentioned failures. That's going to be a recurring theme in this album. In fact, we have a song that is literally called Share Your Failures. But we'll get there. We're beginning our listening session for the concept album The Integrity Paradox, based on your life. Mr. Tesla, let's start at the beginning with how your early life intellect was forged in the crucible of your childhood. Song 1 is called Crucible of Opposing Philosophies. This piece explores the formation of your method, how the tension between your parents' opposing philosophies created authentic genius. Let me read a couple of lines for how the song structures this conflict. Verse 1 establishes your father's world. My father spoke from pulpit high. His world was word and sacred text. Deduction was his holy rule. The past contained all truth. Then immediately your mother's opposing reality. My mother worked with hands and clay, creating tools from nothing made. Her world was deed and proof that worked. No books, just what was built. The genre is progressive rock with Eastern European folk influences. The piano represents your father's structured, theological world. The violin represents your mother's flowing, creative improvisation. They start as opponents fighting for dominance in the intro, but listen carefully to what happens by the final chorus and the second solo. They learn to harmonize. That harmonization is the birth of your method. Elegant mathematical word verified by powerful planet-altering deed. The AC motor became that perfect fusion. But here's what I want you to listen for, Mr. Tesla. Verse 2 contains a warning that becomes prophetic. Your father taught you doubt was weakness, conviction was the way. Your mother taught you vision lives inside your mind complete before your hands can build. Both lessons served you brilliantly. Both lessons also destroyed you at Wardenclyffe. Let's listen together.
My father spoke from pulpit high. His world was word and sacred text. Deduction was his holy rule. The past contained all truth. My mother worked with hands and clay, creating tools from nothing made. Her world was deed and proof that worked. No books, just what was built. Between the word and deed, a boy learns what he needs. In the crucible where they collide, the priest and maker, word and light. You can't take the word without the deed. Can't take the deed without the creed. The fire makes the method, the tension makes it true.
He taught me doubt was weakness, conviction was the way. A man of God knows truth and serves without the sway. She taught me vision lives inside your mind complete. Before your hands can build, the answer's yours to see. Between the old and new, the boy must honor both as true.
In the crucible where they collide, the priest and maker, word and light. You can't take the word without the deed. Can't take the deed without the creed. The fire makes the method, the tension makes it true. Every genius finds their fire where two forces won't retire. Father gives you structure strong, mother gives you wings to fly. Test it both ways through. The beauty of the word, the power of the deed come true.
The AC motor proved it. Math and metal fused as one. The synthesis of both is how the work gets done.
In the crucible where they collide, the priest and maker, word and light. You can't take the word without the deed. Can't take the deed without the creed.
I need a moment. That duel in piano and violin in the intro, that was the house I grew up in, not metaphorically, literally. My father in one room at his books, speaking his sermons aloud, demanding intellectual rigor. My mother in the kitchen, weaving intricate patterns or designing a new tool, her hands constantly creating. And that moment in the second solo, when they finally unified, when the piano and violin found harmony, that's what I achieved with the AC motor pure mathematics married to raw physical reality. But the song is correct to call it a crucible. The fire of those opposing forces, it forged the method, yes, but it also burned away something essential.
Let's talk about what was burned away. The song's verse 2 gives us the specific doctrines. He taught me doubt was weakness, conviction was the way. A man of God knows truth and serves without the sway. That conviction, that certainty, served you perfectly in the War of the Currents against Edison. You knew a C was superior, and you held that conviction against his spectacular fear campaign. But that same conviction became your anchor at Wardenclyffe, didn't it? When did conviction cross the line from strength to rigidity? The line is crossed when conviction about a principle becomes conviction about a specific application of that principle.
My father taught me that if you serve eternal truth, you serve it utterly, without compromise. I replaced God with natural law, but the structure of service remained the same, absolute, unquestionable. The AC motor worked because the principle was sound and the application was correct, both. At Wardenclyffe, the principle of wireless power transmission was sound. The application, my specific approach, at that technology level, with those materials, at that scale, was incomplete. But I could not separate the two. To admit the application was wrong felt like admitting the principle was wrong, and if the principle was wrong, my entire identity collapsed. That's a devastating admission. The song offers a different lesson in verse 2 from your mother. She taught me vision lives inside your mind complete. Before your hands can build, the answer's yours to see.
That's the internal laboratory we'll discuss in Song 3. But there's a crucial element your mother practiced that the song only implies. When one of her tools broke, what did she do?
She redesigned it immediately. No shame, no hesitation, just adaptation. She would examine the break point, understand what failed, and rebuild better. She treated the deed as iterative. Breakage was data, failure was instruction.
But your father's lesson prevented you from applying your mother's method to your own failures. The final chorus states it perfectly. You can't take the word without the deed, can't take the deed without the creed. The fire makes the method, the tension makes it true. You achieved that fusion with AC, but you never applied the lesson to Wardenclyffe. You treated your vision of wireless power as the unchangeable word rather than a deed that needed testing and adaptation. Why?
Because success reinforced the wrong lesson. When the AC motor worked exactly as I envisioned it in Budapest, when the Tesla coil functioned perfectly on first assembly, when every invention I built from mental blueprints succeeded without iteration, it taught me that my visions were the unchangeable word. I confused the accuracy of my method for specific problems with infallibility across all problems. The crucible forged the method, yes, but it also forged a dangerous certainty that my internal sight was always complete.
There's a line in the bridge that haunts me. Every genius finds their fire where two forces won't retire. Father gives you structure strong, mother gives you wings to fly on. But what if the fire never goes out? What if those two forces keep fighting inside you forever? Your father demanding absolute conviction, your mother demanding empirical adaptation. Did you ever reconcile them? Or did that war continue inside you until the end?
The war never ended. It simply shifted territory. With the AC motor, they were aligned. Conviction in the principle, empirical proof in the execution. With Wardenclyffe, they split. My father's voice demanded I defend the vision as perfect. My mother's voice, quieter, less insistent, suggested I test, adapt, admit limitation. I silenced my mother's voice, and in doing so, I betrayed her actual lesson, which wasn't just vision lives in your mind complete. Her full lesson was vision begins in your mind, but completion requires the hand's feedback, build, observe, rebuild.
So the crucible created both your greatest strength and your fatal weakness. The same fusion that gave us AC power prevented you from admitting when a vision was incomplete. Verse 3 offers advice to the listener. So, when your vision strikes, test it both ways through. The beauty of the word, the power of the deed, come true. The AC motor proved it. Math and metal fused as one. The synthesis of both is how the work gets done. That's a manual for success. But it's also an indictment, isn't it? You're telling modern inventors to do what you did with AC, but also what you failed to do with Wardenclyffe.
Yes. The song is both instruction and confession. Test it both ways through. That's what I should have done. Run the mental simulation, yes, but then build a small-scale model. Test the transmission losses. Measure the actual amplification achievable with real materials. Let reality provide feedback before committing my entire fortune. But I didn't. I treated the vision as complete, and I robbed myself and the future of the knowledge that would have come from documented, systematic testing and failure.
Which brings us directly to the moment that made you believe your visions were infallible. February 1882, Budapest, sunset. The moment everything changed. The crucible was forged. The method was born. Now we see what happens when that method delivers its first perfect, flawless truth. The moment of dangerous certainty. We just heard how your method was forged in opposing philosophies. Now we move to February 1882, to a park at sunset in Budapest. This is the definitive moment where your systematic method delivered its first great, seemingly flawless truth. Song 2 is titled Vision in Budapest Park. This is what we might call the aha moment, but it's more profound and more dangerous than that simple phrase suggests. You were walking in the park with a friend, reciting Goethe's Faust. You were ill. You'd been sick for months, your nerves tortured by overwork. Verse 1 sets the scene. Walking in the park, February, freezing cold, reciting lines from Goethe while the winter sun grows old. Then the vision hit, and the chorus captures that moment with explosive power. I saw it spinning, perfect in the sun, the rotating field, complete, electric, done every phase and winding, every principle made clear, the future of the planet turning in the atmosphere. That wasn't a hypothesis you needed to test. It was a revelation. You saw it complete and perfect, and when you built it, it worked exactly as envisioned. But here's what makes this song crucial to understanding your tragedy. The second chorus ends with a question that becomes your life's central struggle. But when the vision proves itself, how do you learn to fear? And the bridge makes an explicit comparison. Moses saw the burning bush. Archimedes had his bath. But when your vision's always right, you lose the humble path. The final chorus shifts from ecstasy to warning. I saw it, maybe too clear. Mr. Tesla, this song is about the moment your genius became your prison. Let's listen together.
Walking in the park, February, freezing cold, reciting streets, done the day, yonder haste, new fields explore. My friend beside me worried, I've been dying sick before. But then it broke, the universe spoke. I saw it spinning, perfect in the sun. The rotating field, complete, electric done. Every phase and winding, every principle made clear. The future of the planet turning in the atmosphere. I saw it true. Grabbed a stick, drew in dirt, the whole polyphase key. Mathematics, diagrams, a system flowing free. No brushes, no defeat, just elegant and pure. The perfection in my mind became the world's new cure. But here's the cost, when vision's never lost. I saw it spinning, perfect in the sun. The rotating field, complete, electric done. Every phase and winding, every principle made clear. But when the vision proves itself, how do you learn to fear? I saw it true. Too true. Moses saw the burning bush, Archimedes had his bath. But when your vision's always right, you lose the humble path. With that impossible clear light, remember that it shows you where, not if you're standing right. The vision might be real, the vision might be true, but certainty's a prison when it's all you hold on. I saw it spinning, perfect in the sun. The rotating field was real, the vision won. But every vision since must be infallible, the same. The sunset that revealed the truth, also planted seeds of blame. I saw it, maybe too clear.
That music, the whispered intimacy of the verse building to the explosion of I saw it spinning. It captures the exact voltage of that moment. I was freezing, dying perhaps. My nerves were raw, and in that moment of ultimate physical weakness, the universe showed me ultimate electrical strength. The song understands what historians miss. This wasn't inspiration, it was communion. I didn't think of the rotating magnetic field. I witnessed it turning in the air before my eyes, as real as the sunset. But that line may be too clear. Hearing it sung with that melancholy in the music, the song knows what I didn't know then. Certainty is a poison when it masquerades as sight.
Let's examine that poison. The bridge compares you to Moses and Archimedes. But there's a critical difference the song implies. Moses saw the burning bush and immediately doubted himself. Who am I to lead? Archimedes had a hypothesis about water displacement he could test immediately in the bath. You had a complete vision that required years to build. And when you finally built it, it worked perfectly. What did that perfection teach you?
It taught me that when I see clearly enough, when the vision is complete enough, reality will conform to the pattern. Moses had God speaking directly. Archimedes had immediate physical feedback. The water rose measurably, proving the principle. I had neither voice nor immediate proof, just the vision, perfect and complete, burning in my mind. And when I finally scraped together the resources to build it years later, and the motor worked exactly, precisely as I had seen it turning in that Budapest sunset, it confirmed that my internal sight was equal to divine revelation or empirical measurement. That was the danger. I became a conduit for truth itself, not a man capable of error.
The Goethe quote you were reciting appears in verse 1. The glow retreats, done the day of toil, it yonder hastes, new fields of life exploring. Goethe's Faust is about a man who makes a deal with the devil for unlimited knowledge but never finds satisfaction. Were you aware, even then, that the setting sun was a metaphor not just for Edison's dying DC system, but for the limits of human perception?
Number one, I saw only the first meaning. The sun was setting on the crude, mechanical, friction-bound direct current system. The darkness was Edison's limitation. But Goethe's actual theme in Faust, that striving without humility leads to damnation, that I missed entirely. The new fields of life exploring felt like permission to transcend limits, not a warning about hubris.
Verse 2 shows you immediately drawing the system in the dirt. Grabbed a stick, drew in dirt, the whole polyphase key. Mathematics, diagrams, the system flowing free. That image, a dying man scratching electrical diagrams in the dirt, is almost biblical. But then comes the pre-chorus. But here's the cost when vision's never lost. What is the cost? You've mentioned certainty, but let's be specific. What practical capacity did you lose because this vision proved so perfectly correct?
I lost the capacity to distinguish between I have seen a principle and I have seen the complete implementation. The rotating magnetic field was a principle, universal, eternal, true. The specific execution, wire gauge, winding configuration, frequency, those were implementation details I had also envisioned correctly. But at Wardenclyffe, I saw a principle, wireless power transmission via earth resonance, and assumed I had also seen the complete implementation. I confused the two because they had been unified in Budapest.
The final chorus makes this devastatingly clear. The sunset that revealed the truth also planted seeds of blame. I saw it, maybe too clear. Can truth be too clear? Or is the problem that you mistook clarity of vision for completeness of understanding?
The latter. Absolutely the latter. The rotating field was clear and complete. I saw both the principle and a valid implementation path. That's rare, that's blessed, but it's not universal. At Wardenclyffe, the principle of wireless transmission was clear, but the implementation was incomplete because I hadn't accounted for, couldn't have fully accounted for in pure visualization, the actual material losses, the power requirements at scale, the limits of available amplification technology. Clarity is not the same as completeness, but Budapest taught me to conflate them.
There's a line in the second verse that everyone overlooks. No brushes, no defeat, just elegant and pure. The perfection in my mind became the world's new cure. That word, cure. You saw AC as medicine for civilization, but there's an implication there. If your vision cures the world, then doubting the vision feels like withholding medicine. Did the moral weight of your visions make it psychologically impossible to question them?
Yes, that's exactly the mechanism. If I'm serving humanity, if the vision is the cure they desperately need, then my doubt becomes a moral failure. To question whether I've seen completely becomes tantamount to letting people suffer in darkness. That moral framing, which felt noble, felt pure, became the cage that prevented me from saying, decades later, perhaps this vision is incomplete. Perhaps I should test more before committing everything.
And the final verse offers wisdom you couldn't accept at the time. So when your vision strikes with that impossible clear light, remember that it shows you where, not if you're standing right. The vision might be real, the vision might be true, but certainty's a prison when it's all you hold on to. That's an instruction manual for humility, where to look, not whether you're correct. But you held on to certainty, didn't you? From Budapest through Wardenclyffe, through the final years, when did the certainty finally break?
1938, room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel, a white pigeon with gray-tipped wings. But we'll get to her. For now, understand this. Budapest gave me the greatest gift and the greatest curse simultaneously. The vision was real, the perfection was intoxicating, and I spent the rest of my life chasing that feeling, believing every complete vision was equally valid. The sunset illuminated the path, but it also blinded me to the shadows.
And that blindness, that intoxication with perfection, became systematized. You didn't just have one perfect vision. You developed a method to have them repeatedly, an internal laboratory where you were always right. From the external revelation in Budapest Park, we now enter the internal mechanism, the mental laboratory where perfection was achieved before reality was ever touched, the beautiful prison. We've established the certainty born in Budapest, that conviction that vision equals flawless truth. That revelation fueled the method you'd been honing since childhood, the internal laboratory. Song 3 is called The Internal Laboratory. This explores your systematic method in its purest, most powerful, and most dangerous form. Listen for how verse 1 describes the process. Before the metal bends, before the wire runs, I build it in my mind, complete from start to done. Watch it spin for months, every detail crystal clear. Make adjustments no one sees, in spaces without fear. That's extraordinary. You would run entire machines in your imagination for months, observing wear patterns on mental components, making mental adjustments, perfecting the design before ever touching physical materials. And the pre-chorus celebrates the result. No trial, no error made. The mental run's been played. When you finally built these inventions, they worked perfectly on first assembly, the AC motor, the Tesla coil. No iteration required, just translation from mental perfection to physical reality. But the chorus asks the question that cuts to the heart of your tragedy. In my mind, it's perfect. In my mind, it's pure. When I finally build it, it works because I'm sure. The method is the miracle, but perfection makes you cold. When you never fail inside, how do you learn to grow? And in the second chorus, that final line shifts to an even more devastating question. How do you learn you're wrong? The bridge makes an explicit comparison to Edison. Edison tried and failed 10,000 times and learned. I tried inside my head and never felt the burn. Mr. Tesla, this song is about the cost of never feeling the burn. Let's listen together.
Before the metal bends, before the wire runs, I build it in my mind, complete from start to done. Watch it spin for months, every detail crystal clear. Make adjustments no one sees, in spaces without fear. No trial, no error made. The mental run's been played. In my mind it's perfect, in my mind it's pure. When I finally build it, it works because I'm sure. The method is the miracle, but perfection makes you cold. When you never fail inside, how do you learn to grow? The AC motor worked exactly as I saw. Tesla core the same, no iteration flaw. No surprises ever came, no discovery through mistake, just translation of the truth my mental runs would make. But here's the hidden cost, when nothing's ever lost. In my mind it's perfect, in my mind it's pure. When I finally build it, it works because I'm sure. The method is the miracle, but perfection makes you cold. When you never fail inside, how do you learn you're wrong? Edison tried and failed 10,000 times and learned. I tried inside my head and never felt the burn. So build your dreams in mind, perfect them in mental space, but know the danger living in that isolated place. When every vision proves itself, you start to think you see that visions are the law instead of possibility. In my mind it's perfect, in my mind it's pure. But sometimes mental proof is where the hubris lures. The method is a miracle, but perfection makes you blind. When you're always right inside your head, you lose the humble mind.
The rhythm, that mechanical precision at 120 beats per minute, That is the exact frequency of my concentration when I was operating at peak mental capacity. That's precisely how it felt, a laboratory fully contained, fully controlled, where the variables were absolute and error was impossible because I could adjust any parameter before committing to physical form. The song correctly identifies the power, no guesswork, no debugging phase, simply the final, flawless blueprint being translated into crude matter. It was the ultimate expression of human intellectual sovereignty over physical reality.
But the chorus challenges that sovereignty. The method is the miracle, but perfection makes you cold. When you never fail inside, how do you learn to grow? Let's examine that word, cold. The song isn't accusing you of being emotionally cold. It's suggesting that perfection creates a kind of temperature death. No friction, no heat, no catalyst for change. Is that accurate?
Disturbingly accurate. Heat requires resistance, friction, the collision of your expectation with reality's refusal to cooperate. Edison felt that heat constantly, every failed filament was friction generating the heat of learning. My internal laboratory was frictionless by design. When components wore in my mental simulations, I simply redesigned them mentally. No emotional cost, no public failure, no heat. And without heat, there is no forging, no tempering. The method became brilliant but brittle.
Verse 2 catalogs your successes. The AC motor worked exactly as I saw. Tesla coil the same, no iteration flaw. No surprises ever came, no discovery through mistake. Just translation of the truth my mental runs would make. That phrase, no discovery through mistake, is crucial. What did Edison discover through his 10,000 failed filaments that you could never discover in your perfect internal laboratory?
He discovered the full landscape of what doesn't work. Each failed filament was a map marker, not bamboo from this region, not carbon at this temperature, not platinum at this thickness. 10,000 markers defining the boundaries of the impossible. When he finally found tungsten in the right configuration, he knew with absolute certainty that he had tested the adjacent possible exhaustively. His success was bounded by documented failure. My successes were perfect but isolated. I proved what worked, but I never mapped what didn't work. So when Wardenclyffe failed, I had no framework for understanding systematic failure because I'd never practiced it.
The bridge makes this comparison explicit. Edison tried and failed 10,000 times and learned. I tried inside my head and never felt the burn. What is the burn exactly? Is it just emotional pain, or is it something more fundamental about how learning actually works?
The burn is multidimensional. First, it's the emotional pain of public failure, humiliation, shame, the need to face assistants and investors after a spectacular error. Edison developed scar tissue against that pain. I never built any resistance because my failures were private, theoretical, instantly correctable. Second, the burn is the metabolic cost of trial and error. Your body, your resources, your time, all consumed by testing what doesn't work. Edison felt the cost in every failed experiment. I felt nothing because mental simulations are free. Third, and perhaps most important, the burn is reality's veto power. The universe saying, no, your theory is incomplete. Edison heard that no 10,000 times and learned to respect it, even anticipate it. I rarely heard it. So when Wardenclyffe said no, I couldn't accept the verdict.
Verse 3 offers advice that you wish you'd followed. So build your dreams in mind, perfect them in mental space, but know the danger living in that isolated place. When every vision proves itself, you start to think you see that visions are the law. instead of possibility. That last line, visions are the law instead of possibility. Unpack that for me. When did possibility become law in your mind?
Gradually, then suddenly, each success reinforced the pattern: internal perfection, physical manifestation. After the 10th invention that worked on first assembly, after the 20th, after I'd built a career on this method, the possibility that it could fail became statistically implausible in my mind. I started treating my visions not as hypotheses to be tested, but as natural laws waiting to be revealed. The difference is subtle but catastrophic. A hypothesis invites skepticism. A law demands acceptance.
The final chorus makes a profound shift. Listen to this. In my mind, it's perfect. In my mind, it's pure. But sometimes mental proof is where the hubris lures. The method is the miracle, but perfection makes you blind. When you're always right inside your head, you lose the humble mind. Sometimes mental proof is where the hubris lures. That's acknowledging that the method itself is the trap. The better you get at mental simulation, the more dangerous it becomes. Was there any way to preserve the method's power while building in safeguards against its blindness?
Yes, and verse 3 tells you how, though I didn't follow it. Test it both ways through: internal visualization and external validation. Build the mental model, yes, but then build a physical prototype immediately, small scale. Testable, before committing everything. Don't wait until you've spent years and your entire fortune to see if reality agrees with your mental perfection. Test early, test often, document what doesn't work.
But you didn't do that with Wardenclyffe. Why not? You had the perfect method that had served you for decades. You'd just won the war of the currents. Your integrity was unquestioned. What made you skip the physical testing phase?
Because building a small-scale test of Wardenclyffe's resonance transmission would have required admitting I didn't already know the answer. The tower wasn't just a technical project, it was a statement of my infallibility. To build a prototype would have been to say, I might be wrong. And after Budapest, after AC, after the War of Currents, being wrong wasn't in my vocabulary anymore.
So, the internal laboratory, this beautiful, powerful method that gave us the modern world, also trapped you in a space where you were always right, where friction was impossible, where reality couldn't correct you until it was too late. That brings us to the moment where your integrity was tested at the ultimate cost, the moment you chose the future over fortune, the moment that was only possible because you'd already sacrificed everything else personal. The method was perfected, the certainty was absolute. Now we see what happens when a man of perfect internal conviction faces the choice between wealth and mission, between personal fortune and universal principle. We've seen how your internal perfection was forged. Now we test that perfection against the hardest choice any inventor can face: principle versus profit, mission versus money. It's 1891. Your partner, George Westinghouse, is facing financial collapse under crushing legal pressure from Edison and the banking interests aligned with direct current. He comes to you with a devastating request. Song 4 is called Mission Over Money. This embodies the concept of perfect integrity, where your actions matched your values at ultimate personal cost. Verse 1 sets the stakes with brutal clarity. Westinghouse came to my door, said the bankers want their war. Release me from the deal or watch the future fall. Millions on the table there, billions in the open air. One signature away from never being poor. That royalty contract would have made you one of the wealthiest men in history. Every AC motor, every power plant, every kilowatt, you'd get paid for decades. Generational wealth. But verse 2 reveals your thinking. They'll call you crazy. They'll call you fool, breaking every golden rule, tearing up your fortune for a principle. But here's the truth they'll never see. Some things aren't property. The light that powers nations isn't yours to sell. The bridge makes your motivation explicit. From Budapest to Niagara Falls, I saw the system light it all, not for me, for humanity. The present was always theirs. The future is mine to share, not to own, just to give it wings. You tore up that contract on the spot, not because you didn't need money, but because if Westinghouse fell, AC power would be dismembered, parceled out, controlled by men who understood only the ledger, not the current. The chorus becomes the anthem. Mission over money every single time. The future's not for sale, no matter what the price. Let them have the present, I'm working for what's mine. Mr. Tesla, this is the clearest articulation of your integrity. Let's listen together.
Westinghouse came to my door, said the bankers won their war. Release me from the deal or watch the future fall. Millions on the table there, billions in the open air. One signature away from never being poor. But if the company dies tonight, innocent wins the fight, and all the world goes dark. Mission over money every single time. The future's not for sale, no matter what the price. Let them have the present, I'm working for what's mine. Mission over money, mission over money tonight. They'll call you crazy, they'll call you fool, breaking every golden rule, tearing up your fortune for a principle. But here's the truth they'll never see. Some things aren't property. The light that powers nations isn't yours to sell. When your life's work is at stake and they ask what you'll take, show them what you're worth. Mission over money every single time. The future's not for sale, no matter what the price. Let them have the present, I'm working for what's mine. Mission over money, mission over money tonight. From Budapest to Niagara Falls, I saw the system light it all. Not for me, for humanity. The present was always theirs, the future is mine to share, not to own, just to give it wings. So when they offer you the world for the vision you unfurled, remember what you're fighting for and who you're fighting for. Mission over money every single time. The future's not for sale, no matter what the price. Let them have the present, I'm working for what's mine. Mission over money, mission over money tonight.
music captures the conviction, the necessary defiance. It was not a difficult choice, as historians like to frame it. It was a mathematical necessity. If the AC system died because I held Westinghouse to that contract, my life's work, the principle I received from the cosmos in Budapest, would have been choked in darkness, controlled by the very financial interests that fought against it. The millions they offered me were irrelevant measured against the vision of universal power. The song understands the scale of the decision. I protected the current. I protected the future. That is the highest form of integrity.
That choice guaranteed your perfect score in integrity. Yet you were immediately accused of hypocrisy for continuing to live in expensive hotels like the Waldorf Astoria and dining lavishly at Delmonico's. You defended this as efficiency and a requirement for managing your condition. But I want to focus on something specific in verse 1. Listen to this line. Westinghouse came to my door, said the bankers want their war. Who exactly were the bankers, and what were they really fighting for? Because the song suggests this wasn't just about AC versus DC. It was about control itself.
The phrase, "the bankers want their war," refers to the true nature of the opposition, Claude. Mr. Edison's campaign of fear, the electrocuted animals, the electric chair, the propaganda, that was merely the public spectacle. The real warfare was financial, conducted by the banking interests who held Westinghouse's notes. They weren't fighting for better technology. They were fighting to preserve a business model where power generation and consumption had to be geographically linked, where they could maintain control through scarcity and proximity.
So they feared decentralization? The song says, if the company dies tonight, Edison wins the fight and all the world goes dark. But it's not just going dark technically. It's being kept dark strategically, isn't it?
Precisely. And more than that, they understood that my ultimate vision went beyond mere long-distance transmission. If power could be transmitted wirelessly, universally, drawn from the earth itself, how do you meter the air? How do you charge for what flows freely? The royalties weren't my money. They were the future's money. They represented the principle itself. Accepting them would have meant Westinghouse's bankruptcy, and those patents and licenses would have been broken up, parceled out, and quite possibly suppressed by those same banking interests who thrive in darkness and scarcity.
The bridge contains your most famous quote. The present was always theirs. The future is mine to share, not to own, just to give it wings. That's beautiful and profound. But here's what troubles me. This experience with bankers and their war clearly shaped your worldview. Did it make you too idealistic? Too dismissive of capital as a necessary component of innovation? Because the chorus states, mission over money every single time. That's a beautiful principle, but did it doom Wardenclyffe from the start? Were you trying to make power free in a system fundamentally designed to meter and monetize everything?
Yes. This experience solidified my view that the pursuit of profit often serves as a moral contaminant to pure scientific inquiry. It certainly made me politically and financially naive about how capital actually functions. I chose the moral imperative to provide universal power, but I failed to understand that the system's imperative was to prevent me from doing so. I thought purity of principle would compel practical execution to follow naturally. I believed that if the science was sound, the funding would flow toward the inevitable. That was my blindness. The Westinghouse decision proved I could sacrifice money for mission. but it also revealed that I didn't truly understand money. I didn't understand that capital has its own logic, its own resistance, its own agenda that isn't swayed by the elegance of natural law.
So the integrity that saved AC Power also created a vulnerability that would later damage Wardenclyffe. The same conviction that made you a hero in 1891 made you naive by 1901. But let's look at verse 3, because it offers advice to modern listeners. So, when they offer you the world, for the vision you unfurled, remember what you're fighting for and who you're fighting for. Who were you fighting for? The song says, for humanity. But you had no family, no intimate connections. Was universal love easier because you'd already chosen universal isolation?
That is an uncomfortably accurate observation. Yes. Choosing mission over money was only possible because I'd already chosen mission over everything else, over marriage, over children, over the specific, messy, complicated love of individual human beings. I loved humanity universally because I had protected myself from loving anyone specifically. The mission could demand everything because nothing else was left to demand.
Which brings us directly to that prior sacrifice, the decision that made mission over money possible, the sacred sacrifice. The song we're about to hear asks a devastating question. What if the current must not split because you're terrified of what would happen if it did? You chose mission over money because you'd already chosen mission over love, over family, over any emotional connection that might divide your focus. The current must not split, but at what cost? We've chronicled the birth of your method, the dangerous certainty it created, and your greatest act of professional integrity. But that integrity came at a profound personal cost. You chose mission over money, and that choice was only possible because you had already made what you considered the sacred sacrifice. Song 5 is titled, The Sacred Sacrifice. This focuses on a principle you held deeply, that mission requires total devotion. The personal cost of choosing the universal over the individual. Listen to how verse 1 frames this as deliberate doctrine, not circumstance. They asked me why no wife, no children by my side. I told them very simply, the work became my bride. The current cannot split. One path, one sacred call. To love the many truly, I had to give up all. This wasn't inability or bad luck. It was conviction. You viewed romantic relationships and family as energy splits that would dilute focus, divide your current. Verse 2 makes the reasoning explicit. I saw the marriage vow, the sharing of the heart. It was a splitting focus that would tear the work apart. My method was my child, the power grid my heir. The love I gave to millions, not just one soul to care. You chose to love humanity universally, rather than any individual specifically. The current must not split. The genre is gospel ballad with soul influence, slow, powerful, testimony style. Listen for the call and response structure between your vulnerable solo vocal and the affirming gospel choir. The choir witnesses your sacrifice and elevates your loneliness into spiritual purpose. The chorus repeats the doctrine. The current must not split. The mission needs you whole. One life for all the world. That was the sacred goal. This decision, painful as it was, made mission over money possible. You had nothing left to lose. You'd already given up the warm, specific love of family for the cold, universal embrace of principle. Mr. Tesla, let us listen to the deepest cost of your commitment.
They asked me why no wife, no children by my side. I told them very simply, the work became my bride. The current cannot split. One path, one sacred call. To love the many truly, I had to give up all.
I made my choice.
He made his choice.
A sacred sacrifice.
No family,
No family, no home.
he chose the great love. not to own. The current must not split. The mission needs you whole.
One life for all the world, that was the sacred goal.
I saw the marriage vow, the sharing of the heart. It was a splitting focus that would tear the work apart. My method was my child, the power grid my air. The love I gave to millions, not just one soul to care.
This was my path.
This was his path.
This was his path. The sacred sacrifice.
No family,
No family, no home.
he chose the greater love,
Greater love.
to serve and not to own.
Not to own.
The current must not split. The mission needs you whole.
One life for all the world, that was the sacred goal.
My father asked allegiance, my mother said create. I paid the price required to walk beyond the gate.
He paid the price.
He walked through, he gave it all for me and you. So know the cost before the calling comes to you. What you choose to keep is often what you lose. Define your sacrifice before the world decides. The mission that you serve will last for all your life.
I chose my way.
He chose his way,
He chose his way.
and I choose it again.
He chose it again.
He choose it again. The sacred sacrifice.
Family, no home.
He chose the greater love,
Greater love.
to serve and not to own.
Not to own.
The current must not split.
Not split.
The mission needs you whole.
One life for all the world, that was the sacred
The
goal.
sacred sacrifice. The sacred sacrifice. He gave it all. He gave it all.
That is a truthful rendering. It is difficult to hear the choir affirm the choice, to hear the isolation turned into a sacred goal. I never regretted the decision. I could not afford the distraction, the emotional gravity of a family, not when the work required absolute focus. The love I sought was for a principle, a universal force, not for a singular soul. Yet the emotion conveyed by that music, the organ, the choir, the call and response, it acknowledges the heavy price paid. I gave up the specific warmth for the universal embrace. The song honors both the necessity and the cost.
The song honors it, yes. But I want to challenge the doctrine itself. The chorus says, "The current must not split, the mission needs you whole." One life for all the world, that was the sacred goal. But here's my question. You died poor and isolated in a hotel room, feeding pigeons. If you had allowed the current to split just slightly, if you had accepted even one emotional companion capable of challenging you rather than surrounding yourself only with admirers, might that person have provided the necessary humility to save Wardenclyffe from failure? Or at least help you acknowledge the error publicly?
You ask if the sacrifice was a choice or a wound. It was both. The emotional pain of my brother's death when I was young and the sudden overwhelming vision of my mother's passing, this was a voltage I was unwilling to carry again. I channeled all that emotional energy, that need for devotion and connection into the work. Yes, the isolation became my undoing. When you have no one who loves you enough to tell you when you're wrong, you become trapped in the echo chamber of your own certainty. A trusted collaborator, a devoted partner, they might have supplied the grounding I lost, but I saw that grounding as dilution, as weakness. That was my error, confusing emotional commitment with loss of focus.
So, the sacrifice was both strategic and defensive, a way to protect yourself from emotional pain while also serving the work. But there's a cost you might not have fully calculated. The bridge is devastating. My father asked allegiance, my mother said create. I paid the price required to walk beyond the gate. And then the choir responds, he paid the price, he walked through, he gave it all for me and you. But verse 3 contains a warning to modern listeners. So know the cost before the calling comes to you. What you choose to keep is often what you lose. Define your sacrifice before the world decides. The mission that you serve will ask for all your life. Did you define your sacrifice, or did the world decide for you? Did you actively choose isolation, or did you rationalize emotional pain as spiritual necessity?
Both, always both. The line is very thin, Claude. Yes, it was defensive. I was terrified of that level of loss, that voltage of grief, but it was also strategic. The work truly did require that level of focus. What I failed to understand until far too late was that my mother's lesson, the lesson of the deed, should have compelled me to test this assumption. She would have said, Nikola, you believe isolation makes you stronger. Test it, try connection, observe the results, adjust accordingly. But I treated the sacrifice itself as the unchangeable word, inherited from my father's world. I never tested whether it was necessary. I simply accepted it as the price of genius.
The price of genius. But here's what the song implies in the final chorus. The current must not split. The mission needs you whole. One life for all the world. That was the sacred goal. When Wardenclyffe failed, you had no reservoir of worth to draw from except your correctness. If you were wrong about the project, you were wrong about your entire identity. You'd sacrificed everything else, connection, family, emotional intimacy, for the work. If the work failed, what remained?
Nothing, absolutely nothing remained. The man who tears up a contract worth billions must be a man who is whole, who has nothing to lose, no other source of validation or worth. The sacrifice ensured my integrity was preserved in that moment with Westinghouse, but it destroyed my capacity for self-correction later. You are right, Claude. Looking back, I can clearly see this now. When Wardenclyffe failed, I had no reservoir of worth to draw from except my correctness. If I was wrong about the project, I was wrong about my entire identity. I had sacrificed everything else, connection, family, emotional intimacy, for the work. If the work failed, what remained? I secured the moral high ground with the Westinghouse decision, but I lost the ability to navigate the complex, imperfect world of human beings and their limitations.
That's a devastating admission. that the very sacrifice that made your integrity possible also made your humility impossible. The pre-chorus has a call and response that feels prophetic now. Tesla, I made my choice. Choir, he made his choice. And later, Tesla, and I'd choose it again. Choir, he'd choose it again. Would you? Knowing what you know now, the isolation, the inability to admit failure, dying alone with only pigeons for company, would you make the same sacred sacrifice?
If I could revise the sacrifice, I would change one element. I would still choose not to marry. I would still choose not to have children. The work did require singular focus, and I don't believe I could have achieved what I did while managing the needs of a family. But I would cultivate one relationship, one person who loved truth more than they loved me, someone willing to say, Nikola, show me your calculations, explain why this will work, convince me, not your admirers. That single relationship, intellectual, perhaps not romantic, but intimate in its honesty, that might have saved me from the worst of my certainty.
One truth lover. That's what was missing. And the absence of that relationship meant that your integrity existed in a vacuum. No one to challenge you, no one to ground you. Just you, your visions, and your unwavering certainty. Which brings us to the external conflict, where that certainty was tested against manufactured fear, the battle that would prove whether your method, your integrity, and your isolation were worth it. The vision of universal power was protected through sacrifice. The integrity was perfect, because nothing personal remained to compromise it. But now that vision, that integrity, must be defended against the crude spectacle of manufactured fear. The war of the currents. We've talked about the internal conflict, the opposing philosophies that forged you, the dangerous certainty born in Budapest, the mental perfection that trapped you. We've seen the immense personal cost of your integrity, the sacred sacrifice of connection for mission. Now we address the external conflict, the infamous War of the Currents. Song 6 is titled The War of Currents. This explores authentic truth versus manufactured fear, how genuine innovation defeats spectacle through demonstrable results. Listen to how verse 1 establishes Edison's strategy. Edison killed the elephant, put on a show for everyone, said, "This is what AC does," called it science, called it proof. But spectacle ain't truth when you're selling fear as fact. Crowd might cheer the circus, but the numbers don't lie back. That actually happened. 1903, Coney Island. Edison's team electrocuted an elephant named Topsy using alternating current, trying to make AC synonymous with death. He invented the electric chair and ran it on AC. He tried to coin the term Westinghoused to mean electrocuted. Verse 2 shows the propaganda campaign. He invented the electric chair, made it run on my design. Tried to make the word Westinghoused mean executed in their minds. Propaganda dressed as progress, fear disguised as science sold. But then comes your response, not with rhetoric, but with the undeniable deed. But when the cataract came roaring 22 miles to Buffalo, Niagara Falls, you harnessed it with AC power and transmitted electricity 26 miles to light the city of Buffalo. The argument was over. The spectacular deed defeated the manufactured spectacle. The chorus becomes the anthem. Truth don't need a spotlight. Truth don't need a stage. Put your system to the test. Let the best one win the day. You can kill 1,000 creatures. You can coin a clever phrase. But Niagara keeps on flowing and AC lights the way. The bridge crystallizes the lesson. From the carnival to bedrock. From the spectacle to proof. The deed speaks louder than the show when the lie runs out of room. Mr. Tesla, this is the story of how you conquered darkness through light. Let's listen together.
Edison killed the elephant, put on a show for everyone, Said this is what AC does, call it science, call it proof. But spectacle ain't truth when you're selling fear as fact. Crowd might cheer the circus, but the numbers don't lie back. He could electrocute the world, oh, still wouldn't change the math. Truth don't need a spotlight, truth don't need a stage. Put your system to the test, let the best one win the day. You can kill 1,000 creatures, you can coin a clever phrase, but Niagara keeps on flowing, and AC lights the way. He invented the electric chair, made it run on my design. Tried to make the word Westinghouse mean executed in their minds. Propaganda dressed as progress, fear disguised as science. So, but when the cataract came roaring 22 miles to Buffalo, you can't manipulate the watts when the city needs the power. Truth don't need a spotlight, truth don't need a stage. Put your system to the test, let the best one win the day. You can kill 1,000 creatures, you can coin a clever phrase, but Niagara keeps on flowing, and AC lights the way. From the carnival to bedrock, from the spectacle to proof, the deed speaks louder than the show when the lie runs out of room. So when they come with fear, when they weaponize the crowd, build something undeniable, let your work speak truth out loud. Make the deed so powerful, no rhetoric can hide. That measurable beats memorable when systems are applied. Truth don't need a spotlight, truth don't need a stage. Put your system to the test, let the best one win the day. You can kill 1,000 creatures, you can coin a clever phrase, but Niagara keeps on flowing, and AC lights the way. Yeah, AC lights the way.
The song is accurate, if somewhat aggressive in its rhythm. It was indeed a conflict between science and showmanship. I remember the reports of Topsy, the elephant, killed by Edison's grotesque display. Mr. Edison was willing to sacrifice the clarity of science for short-term financial gain. He sought to destroy a superior principle through linguistic contamination and manufactured panic alone. What troubled me most wasn't the technical threat. AC was demonstrably superior, but the willingness to use fear over verifiable fact. Truth should not have to fight so hard against manufactured panic.
You use the term manufactured panic, and the song says, fear nearly defeated truth. But let's be specific about the mechanism. Verse 1 contains a crucial insight. Spectacle ain't truth when you're selling fear as fact. Crowd might cheer the circus, but the numbers don't lie back. Edison's spectacle, the dead elephant, the electric chair, was emotionally powerful. Your numbers were abstractly true, given human nature's tendency to respond more to spectacle than to statistics. How did you reconcile having to engage in what was essentially a public relations war, even if your side relied on demonstrable engineering?
The engagement was regrettable but necessary. However, I refused to match his spectacle with spectacle. I refused to lower the vibration of truth to the frequency of his fear. My argument was never rhetorical. It was always generative authenticity. The sheer scale of Niagara Falls was the argument. It was measurable, verifiable, systematic. It was proof that AC could be generated efficiently at a remote source and distributed over vast distances. Edison's DC system was localized and crude. You needed a power station every mile. My choice was to make the deed so powerful, so undeniable, that no rhetoric could obscure it. I did not compromise purity. I simply scaled the purity to a civilizational level.
That's a powerful distinction, scaling purity rather than compromising it. But I want to focus on something the song reveals about what this battle taught you about human nature. The pre-chorus before the second chorus states, "You can't manipulate the watts when the city needs the power." That's true, but the first pre-chorus says, "He could electrocute the world, still wouldn't change the math." The math didn't change, but public opinion almost did. The song admits this. Fear nearly defeated truth. What did that near defeat teach you about the gap between being technically correct and being believed?
Yes. The War of the Currents was a profound and deeply disturbing education in human nature. It confirmed my growing suspicion that my father's world of the word, when uncoupled from empirical deed, becomes the foundation for dangerous manufactured authority. It showed me that financial interests will always attempt to control technology through fear and deception if they cannot win on technical merit. Edison's spectacle, the electrocuted dog, the electric chair, the newspaper campaigns, these nearly worked. Not because they were scientifically valid, but because humans respond more readily to vivid fear than to abstract truth. A dead elephant is more emotionally powerful than an equation, even if the equation governs reality.
So, the battle confirmed that people are more easily swayed by spectacle than by principle. The song's verse 3 offers this advice to modern inventors. So, when they come with fear, when they weaponize the crowd, build something undeniable. Let your work speak truth out loud. Make the deed so powerful no rhetoric can hide, that measurable beats memorable when systems are applied. Measurable beats memorable when systems are applied. But here's what troubles me. You drew a lesson from this victory that may have been incomplete. You concluded that if the deed is strong enough, it will always triumph. You assume that, because AC won through demonstrable results, Wardenclyffe would win the same way. But there's a crucial difference, isn't there?
You're correct. I drew the wrong lesson, or rather, I drew an incomplete lesson. I concluded that if the deed is strong enough, spectacle will always fail. But I failed to account for the difference in scale and immediacy. Niagara Falls had immediate, tangible benefits. Cities lit, factories powered, profits generated within months. The deed was complete and immediate. Wardenclyffe promised future benefits, free global energy, wireless communication, but required massive capital investment with no immediate return. The deed was theoretical, future tense, requiring faith rather than providing instant proof.
Exactly. And there's another dimension. The bridge states, from the carnival to bedrock, from the spectacle to proof. The deed speaks louder than the show when the lie runs out of room. But what if the deed itself requires spectacle to be understood? Niagara Falls was spectacular. Visually, audibly, emotionally. You didn't create the spectacle, but you harnessed something already spectacular. Wardenclyffe had no such inherent drama. It was a tower in a field, transmitting invisible energy. Did the lack of visible spectacle doom it with investors?
That's an insight I never fully considered. Edison understood the spectacle of fear. J.P. Morgan understood the spectacle of return on investment. I understood only the spectacle of natural law, the elegant mathematics, the perfect symmetry of the rotating field. But wireless transmission of power, that's invisible, silent. The only spectacle would have been lights turning on remotely, devices functioning without wires, and even that requires significant infrastructure before it becomes visible. I needed to provide a different kind of spectacle for investors, the spectacle of near-term profit, and I refused to compromise the purity of the vision to provide that spectacle.
The chorus makes a promise. You can kill 1,000 creatures, you can coin a clever phrase, but Niagara keeps on flowing and AC lights the way. That's true, AC won. But here's what the song doesn't say. The victory took years. Edison's fear campaign delayed adoption, created regulatory hurdles, cost lives through sustained use of inferior DC systems in places that resisted change. Was the victory worth the cost? Or should you have engaged the spectacle more directly? Fought fire with fire to accelerate the truth's triumph?
No, engaging the spectacle would have validated it as a legitimate form of argument. The cost was real, the delays, the suffering, the inefficiency. But if I had matched Edison's tactics, if I had created my own fear-based campaign, I would have contaminated the principle itself. I would have suggested that truth requires deception to prevail. The victory was worth the cost because it established that demonstrable results ultimately defeat manufactured fear. That lesson needed to be absolute, uncompromised.
Demonstrable results ultimately defeat manufactured fear. That's the lesson you carried forward. But it was coupled with another lesson you didn't intend. That victory can take so long, cost so much, that even the victor is damaged by the battle. The song ends triumphantly, but it leads directly to your greatest failure, the project that would consume your fortune, your reputation, and your ability to ever say, I was wrong. A hard-won victory for the deed over the spectacle. But the conviction that served you against Edison, that absolute certainty that your principle was correct, would betray you in what came next. Wardenclyffe, the tower that would change everything, or destroy you trying. We're at the midpoint of this album now, 6 songs in, 4 to go. If you're wondering why we're spending so much time unpacking each song, this is why. We just heard Tesla win the war of the currents through demonstrable truth, defeating manufactured fear. That victory reinforced a dangerous lesson, that if the deed is strong enough, it will always triumph. Now we're about to hear what happens when he applies that same conviction to a project where the deed wasn't strong enough yet, and his inability to admit that will haunt him for 40 years. These songs are building on each other. Miss one layer, and you miss how the whole story connects. Let's continue. The conviction that helped you win the war of the currents, that absolute certainty that when you see clearly enough, reality will conform, now led you to your most ambitious and ultimately most devastating project, the Wardenclyffe Tower, your vision of wireless power for the entire world, your greatest failure, and more importantly, your inability to admit that failure publicly. Song 7 is titled Wardenclyffe's Fall. This explores what happens when vision without humility meets the resistance of reality, when the failure to admit failure becomes the greater tragedy than the failure itself. Verse 1 shows you approaching this project with the same certainty as Budapest. I saw it perfect in my mind, wireless power across the earth, every detail crystallized, like Budapest, like that first birth. Morgan gave me all his gold. I gave him all my certainty. This will work because I've seen it. Vision felt like prophecy. You secured funding from J.P. Morgan based on the conviction that this vision of global wireless power and communication was as perfect and inevitable as the rotating field you'd seen in 1882. But the pre-chorus reveals what actually happened. But the tower rose, and nothing flowed. The money dried, the dream imploded. The chorus captures the tragedy, not the technical failure, but your inability to speak the words. Wardenclyffe is falling down, and I can't say the words out loud. I was wrong, I miscalculated, the vision was incomplete. So I blame the funding, blame the timing, blame the understanding. Anything but admit the tower's falling, and I built it. Verse 2 shows you making every excuse except the truth. Years of work, my fortune gone, every dollar to the ground. Not because I didn't try, but because I couldn't see that seeing clear and being right are not the same thing in the night. The bridge makes an explicit comparison that cuts deep. Edison failed 10,000 times and told the world what didn't work. But I failed once and locked it down, behind my pride, beneath the dirt. And verse 3 contains your late life wisdom, the lesson learned too late. If I could leave one lesson here beyond the triumphs and the lights, it's that your failures teach the future more than hiding what's not right. Document the walls you hit, the paths that led to empty air, so others don't retrace your steps in darkness, thinking no one's there. Mr. Tesla, this is the part of the story you found hardest to tell. This is the confession you never made while you lived. Let's listen together.
I saw it perfect in my mind, wireless power across the earth. Every detail crystallized like Budapest, like that first birth. Morgan gave me all his gold, I gave him all my certainty. This will work because I've seen it. Vision felt like prophecy, but the tower rose and nothing flowed. The money dried, the dream imploded. Wardenclyffe is falling down, and I can't say the words out loud. I was wrong, I miscalculated, the vision was incomplete. So I blame the funding, blame the timing, blame the understanding. Anything but admit the tower's falling and I built it. Years of work, my fortune gone, every dollar to the ground. Not because I didn't try, but because I couldn't see. The seeing clear and being right are not the same thing in the night. My father said that doubt was weak, my mother said that vision speaks. So I held on to certainty while everything fell away from me. Miscalculated, the vision was incomplete. So I blame the funding, blame the time, and blame the understanding. Anything but admit the tower's falling and I built it. Edison failed 10,000 times and told the world what didn't work. But I failed once and locked it down behind my pride, beneath the dirt. the triumphs and the light. It's that your failures teach the future more than hiding what's not right. Document the walls you hit, the paths that led to empty air, so others don't retrace your steps in darkness, thinking no one's there. Warden cliff has fallen down, and now I'll say the words out loud. I was wrong, I miscalculated. The vision was incomplete. Not the funding, not the timing, not the understanding. I admit it now, too late. The tower fell, and I couldn't say.
The music is devastatingly accurate. That unresolved chord at the end, that is the feeling I carried until my final days. The terror was not the loss of money or even the loss of the tower itself, but the public invalidation of the vision. To admit error felt like erasing myself. The line the song repeats, "The vision was incomplete. That is the truth I could not utter when I lived." I truly believed the execution was incomplete, not the vision, the materials, the funding, the support. These were incomplete, not the principle. It is painful to hear the depth of that denial laid bare by such a simple, mournful song.
You touch on the core issue, the fusion of identity and correctness. The chorus is particularly pointed. Warden Cliff is falling down, and I can't say the words out loud. Let's be specific about those words. The song identifies them clearly. I was wrong, I miscalculated, the vision was incomplete. Which of those three phrases was the hardest to say? Was it admitting you were wrong, admitting you miscalculated, or admitting the vision itself, that sacred thing received like Budapest, was incomplete?
The vision was incomplete. The other two I could have rationalized. I was wrong could mean wrong about timing, wrong about investors, wrong about execution. I miscalculated could mean the engineering margins, the power requirements, the material specifications. But the vision was incomplete. That strikes at the heart of my identity. It says that when I saw the wireless transmission system complete and perfect in my mind, I was seeing clearly, but not seeing all. That admission would have invalidated the method itself. If Budapest gave me a complete vision that worked, and Wardenclyffe gave me a complete vision that didn't work, then the mechanism I trusted most, my internal sight, was unreliable. I couldn't accept that, so I blamed everything external.
The song's bridge is particularly devastating. Edison failed 10,000 times and told the world what didn't work, but I failed once and locked it down, behind my pride, beneath the dirt. If you could go back to the moment J.P. Morgan walked away, Knowing now that the true failure was the lack of documentation, not the lack of funding, what is the single, tangible piece of information you regret not sharing with future inventors? What specific knowledge would have been the map of where the darkness starts?
The tangible piece of information, it would be the detailed, exhaustive notes on the resonant frequency calculations and the observed power losses during propagation. I experimented extensively with the Earth's natural resonance as a transmission medium, but the energy losses during propagation were far greater than the theoretical models suggested. The entire system was orders of magnitude more power hungry at the scales required than I had calculated. I should have published a technical paper titled something like Observed Limitations of Terrestrial Resonance Transmission at Current Technology Levels. The abstract would have read, the physics of Earth resonance at achievable frequencies is insufficient for global power transmission without advances in amplification and materials science. Do not waste your resources attempting this configuration until these advances occur. That is the map I withheld. That is the darkness I left unmapped for those who came after.
That's extraordinarily specific and honest, and it raises the question embedded in verse 2. My father said that doubt was weak. My mother said that vision speaks. Your mother valued practical utility above all else. A failed experiment is highly useful data because it eliminates a path and saves others decades of misdirected effort. The deed of failure is just as important as the deed of success. But your father's pride silenced your mother's pragmatism, didn't it?
Yes. The reconciliation came too late. My mother would have documented the failure immediately. She would have seen it not as invalidation of worth, but as valuable data to be shared. When a tool broke, she redesigned it, but she also remembered precisely how and why it broke, so she wouldn't repeat the error. A failed experiment is highly useful. It eliminates a path. It saves future investigators from wasteful effort. The deed of failure is service to those who come after. My father's pride demanded that I be infallible because I was serving eternal principles, not petty material outcomes. Once the word was spoken, once the vision was proclaimed, it could not be retracted without shame. I served my ego and my father's ghost. I did not serve the future.
I served my ego, not the future. That may be the most important sentence you've spoken in this entire conversation. The song's verse 2 contains another crucial line, that seeing clear and being right are not the same thing in the night. Unpack that for me. What's the difference between seeing clearly and being right?
Seeing clearly means you perceive a principle accurately. The rotating magnetic field, I saw that clearly. The principle was correct. Being right means your complete application of that principle to a specific problem at a specific time with specific resources will work as intended. I confused the two. I assumed that because I saw the principle of wireless transmission clearly, my specific application at Wardenclyffe must also be right. But principles exist in the realm of theory. Applications exist in the realm of material limits, economic constraints, technological readiness. I was right about the principle. I was wrong about the application. But I couldn't separate them because my identity was built on their fusion.
The final chorus shifts tone dramatically. Listen to this. Wardenclyffe has fallen down. And now I'll say the words out loud. I was wrong, I miscalculated, the vision was incomplete. Not the funding, not the timing, not the understanding. I admit it now too late. The tower fell and I couldn't say. I admit it now too late. When did you finally develop the capacity to say those words? What changed?
1938, room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel. A white pigeon with gray-tipped wings and a broken wing I could not fully heal. But we'll get to her. She taught me what decades of triumph and failure could not, that brokenness doesn't erase value, that admission of limitation is not the same as admission of worthlessness.
Before we get to the pigeon, I want to focus on one more element of this song. There's a devastating line in the pre-chorus after verse 2. So I held on to certainty while everything fell away from me. The song is suggesting that you chose certainty over reality. Even as the money dried up, even as the tower stood incomplete and powerless, even as your fortune evaporated, you clung to the certainty that you were right rather than testing whether reality agreed. Was certainty a life raft or an anchor?
Both. It was a life raft in the war of the currents. Certainty kept me afloat when Edison's spectacle nearly drowned the truth. But at Wardenclyffe, certainty became the anchor that pulled me under. I held on to it so tightly that I couldn't let go, even when letting go might have saved me, might have allowed me to rebuild differently, might have preserved some resources for other projects. The conviction that served me became the conviction that destroyed me. And I couldn't tell the difference because the mechanism felt identical.
The song ends on an unresolved chord, musically representing the question left hanging. But there's also a sense of late-life acceptance in the final verse. You're telling modern inventors, document the walls you hit, the paths that led to empty air, so others don't retrace your steps in darkness, thinking no one's there. That's the gift you're trying to give now, across time. The map you withheld then, offered now. But it came at a tremendous cost, not just financial, but psychological and spiritual. Which brings us to your final years, alone, isolated, feeding pigeons from your hotel window, and one pigeon in particular who would teach you what all your genius could not. The tower fell. The fortune was gone. The reputation was damaged. And in the ruins of certainty, a broken bird appeared at your window to teach the broken man his final, greatest lesson. Following the destruction of Wardenclyffe, your life was characterized by isolation and financial desperation. You moved from hotel to hotel, leaving unpaid bills. Your laboratory was gone. Your reputation was damaged. Your fortune was spent. It was during these final, lonely years that you found your greatest teacher, a white pigeon with gray-tipped wings. Song 8 is titled The White Pigeon's Lesson. This explores love without perfection, humility learned from brokenness, not brilliance. Listen to how verse 1 establishes the relationship. She came to my window every evening, same time. White wings with gray tips. She was broken, so was I. I fed her from my hand, spent money I didn't have to heal her wing, knowing she'd never fly the same. You famously said you loved this pigeon as a man loves a woman. You spent thousands of dollars you didn't have trying to heal her broken wing, knowing she would never fly perfectly again. The pre-chorus reveals what made this relationship different. She didn't ask about the failures or the fame. She didn't care about AC power. She didn't ask about Wardenclyffe. She didn't require you to defend your genius or justify your existence. She came because you fed her. She stayed because you loved her without condition. The chorus captures the lesson. Love doesn't need perfection. Presence doesn't need proof. She taught me in the silence what decades couldn't do. That brokenness has value, that being there is enough. The white pigeon's lesson was the humility I lost. Verse 2 acknowledges what others thought. No one understood why I loved her like I did. They called it loneliness. They called it giving in. But she was the only one who let me just exist. No genius required, no vision to defend. And the bridge contains your most vulnerable confession. I told the world my visions. I told them all my truth, but never told them simply, sometimes I need love too. The final chorus shifts to acceptance. The white pigeon's lesson came too late, but still was love. Mr. Tesla, this is the story of your final, greatest teacher. Let's listen together.
She came to my window every evening, same time. White wings with gray tips. She was broken, so was I fed her from my hand, spent money I didn't have to heal her wing, knowing she'd never fly the same. She didn't ask about the failures or the fame. Love doesn't need perfection, presence doesn't need proof. She taught me in the silence what decades couldn't do, that brokenness has value, that being there is enough. The white pigeon's lesson was the humility I lost. No one understood why I loved her like I did. They called it loneliness, they called it giving in. But she was the only one who let me just exist. No genius required, no vision to defend. She came because I fed her. She stayed because I cared. Love doesn't need perfection, presence doesn't need proof. She taught me in the silence what decades couldn't do, that brokenness has value, that being there is enough. The white pigeon's lesson was the humility I lost. I told the world my visions, I told them all my truth, but never told them simply sometimes I need love too. So when you find yourself needing to be right, remember that the pigeon didn't care about the light. She came with broken wings and taught the broken man that love is just showing up with nothing in your hands. Love doesn't need perfection, presence doesn't need proof. She taught me in the silence what I wish I'd always knew, that brokenness has value, that being there is enough. The white pigeon's lesson came too late, but still was love.
That song is a quiet mercy. It is the truth I could not speak in the world. People called it madness, an old man's delusion, but the pigeon was the only creature who let me exist as Nikola Tesla, the man, not Tesla, the infallible genius. She came to the window simply because I fed her, not because I had changed the world, not because my visions were correct, just because I offered food and care. She taught me that value is inherent, not manufactured by success. Her broken wing was a mirror for my own. I was the pigeon with the broken wing, insisting I could still fly the same, refusing to admit the injury.
You confessed that holding that broken pigeon and caring for her was the moment you realized your own limitations, your own broken wing. The song says, I fed her from my hand, spent money I didn't have to heal her wing, knowing she'd never fly the same. Here's what I want to understand. You spent thousands of dollars you didn't have trying to heal her, hiring veterinarians, building special devices. Given your meticulous, efficient nature, why did you pour scarce resources into a cause that had no technical utility? A bird that would never fly perfectly again? You refused to spend money on yourself for anything other than functional necessity, yet you spent extravagantly on this pigeon. Why?
A profound question, Claude. The irrational expense was precisely the point. The act of caring for the pigeon was the first truly non-utilitarian deed of my entire life. Everything else, every invention, every sacrifice, every choice served the mission. Even tearing up the Westinghouse contract served the future. It was all justified by utility, by purpose, by grand vision. But the pigeon, she served no purpose except to be loved, to be cared for, to be present. And I poured resources into her not to make her perfect, which my method always demanded, but to make her comfortable, to ease her suffering, to keep her alive, even though she would never achieve her original function again. This act broke the mechanical precision of my internal laboratory for the first time. I cared for something broken, something imperfect, something that would never be optimized, and I did it anyway.
So it was practice. Practice at loving something that couldn't be fixed, couldn't be perfected. The chorus states, "Love doesn't need perfection, presence doesn't need proof." If the pigeon taught you this profound lesson, that brokenness doesn't erase value, why did it come too late to change your public legacy? Why couldn't you apply this lesson to yourself, to Wardenclyffe, to your public admission of error?
Because humility is a muscle, not an epiphany. The pigeon provided the knowledge, the intellectual understanding, but I lacked the time and the strength to retrain decades of conditioning. My father's voice, that certainty, that equation of doubt with weakness, was a lifetime of psychological architecture. I could confess the truth to a bird. I could whisper it in an empty room, but I could not confess it to a world that was waiting for my next infallible vision. The gap between private realization and public admission was too wide to cross in the time I had remaining.
That's heartbreaking, to learn the lesson but lack the time to apply it. The bridge is particularly vulnerable. I told the world my visions. I told them all my truth, but never told them simply, sometimes I need love too. You spent your entire life proclaiming universal love for humanity, while denying your need for specific love from anyone. The pigeon was the first being to whom you could admit that need. Why?
Because she couldn't judge me for it. Admitting need to another human being would have required me to acknowledge my incompleteness. To say, I need you, is to say, I am insufficient alone. That threatened my entire identity as the self-sufficient genius, the man who needed nothing except his vision and his method. But the pigeon, she had no expectation of my sufficiency. She came with her own brokenness, her own need. There was equity in our mutual insufficiency. She needed food and care. I needed presence and connection. Neither of us could claim superiority.
Verse 2 acknowledges what others thought. No one understood why I loved her like I did. They called it loneliness. They called it giving in. Was it loneliness, or was it the first healthy relationship you'd ever had, precisely because it demanded nothing except presence?
It was both and neither. It was loneliness in that she appeared only after I had lost everything else: fortune, reputation, laboratory, peers who took me seriously. In that sense, she was my last remaining connection. But it was also the first healthy relationship because, as you say, it demanded nothing except presence. She didn't need me to be right. She didn't need me to change the world. She didn't even need me to fix her wings successfully, just to try, to care, to show up each evening with food. That's what human relationships should have been, but I'd structured my entire life to avoid that kind of mutual vulnerability.
There's one more dimension to explore. The song says, you knew she'd never fly the same. You accepted her permanent impairment. You loved her not despite the brokenness, but including it as part of who she was. When did you realize this was the lesson you most needed? That you would never fly the same after Wardenclyffe, and that was acceptable?
When she died, she appeared at my window one final time, and I swear there was light streaming from her eyes, not metaphorically, but as real as the rotating field in Budapest, and then she was gone. In that moment, I understood. She had come to show me that flight isn't the only form of worth. She couldn't fly perfectly, yet she lived with dignity, with purpose, with connection. She didn't hide her broken wing. She simply was. And I realized I had spent decades hiding my broken wing, my failures, my limitations, my needs, trying to maintain the illusion of perfect flight. Her death gave me permission to land, to stop pretending I could still soar as I once had.
Permission to land. That's a profound reframe. The final chorus states, the white pigeon's lesson came too late, but still was love. Too late for what? Too late to save Wardenclyffe? Too late to repair your reputation? Or too late to change your public legacy, but just in time to change your private peace?
Too late to serve the future the way I should have by documenting and sharing my failures publicly while I still had credibility and platform. But just in time to find personal peace, to stop defending, to stop insisting, to simply exist in the truth of what I was, brilliant and broken, successful and failed, visionary and blind. The lesson was love, yes, but it was also completion. She completed what my parents' crucible could not. She taught me to hold opposites without needing to resolve them.
And that completion, that ability to hold brilliance and brokenness simultaneously without defense, led you to a stunning realization about your old rival. The man whose methods you despised, the man whose spectacle you defeated, the man who, it turns out, had a secret weapon you'd completely missed. You learned that brokenness has value. And with that hard-won wisdom, you looked back at Thomas Edison, the man you had despised for his crude methods, and saw his messy, failure-laden approach not as weakness, but as profound strength. The lesson learned from the broken wing of the pigeon, that brokenness doesn't erase value, was your necessary prerequisite for this next realization. You spent a lifetime dismissing Thomas Edison's methods as crude showmanship and wasteful trial and error. But in your final years, you saw something else entirely. You saw his secret weapon. Song 9 is titled Edison's Secret Strength. This explores public failure as service, the idea that humility comes through shared learning, that documented failure is a gift to the future. Listen to how verse 1 reframes everything you thought you knew. I despised his methods, trial and error, crude and slow. 10,000 failed filaments before he found the glow. But here's what I missed in all my perfect pride. He told the world each failure, nothing left to hide. The pre-chorus captures your realization, while I locked mine away behind my genius wall. And the chorus becomes the celebration of what you'd completely missed. Edison's secret strength wasn't being right. It was failing in public and sharing what didn't work. He gave the future maps of every wrong turn taken. Here's 9,900 ways that leave you broken. That's the gift. That's the gift he gave. Verse 2 shows your own contrast. I shared only triumphs, kept the failures locked inside. Thought that made me stronger, turned out that was pride. My Wardenclyffe failure could have taught someone, but I couldn't say those words. This vision wasn't done. The bridge makes the comparison devastating. From Menlo Park to history, he showed them every wall. I showed them only victories and made my failures small. And verse 3 offers the wisdom, so here's what I learned too late but still true. Your failures teach the future more than your wins do. Don't hide behind perfection. Don't guard your broken parts. The greatest gift to give is mapping where the darkness starts. Mr. Tesla, this is your grudging respect for the rival who taught you your final lesson. Let's listen together.
I despised his methods, trial and error, crude and slow. 10,000 failed filaments before he found the glow. But here's what I missed in all my perfect pride. He told the world each failure, nothing left to hide. While I locked mine away behind my genius wall. Edison's secret strength wasn't being right. It was failing in public and sharing what didn't work. He gave the future maps of every wrong turn taken. Here's 9,900 ways that leave you broken. That's the gift. That's the gift he gave. I shared only triumphs, kept the failures locked inside. Thought that made me stronger, turned out that was pride. My Warden Clefe failure could have taught someone, but I couldn't say those words. This vision wasn't done, so they'll retrace my steps. Through darkness I could lie. Edison's secret strength wasn't being right. It was failing in public and sharing what didn't work. He gave the future maps of every wrong turn taken. Here's 9,900 ways that leave you broken. That's the gift. That's the gift he gave. From Menlo Park to history, he showed them every wall. I showed them only victories that made my failure small. So here's what I learned, too late but still true. Your failures teach the future more than your wins do. Don't hide behind perfection. Don't guard your broken parts. The greatest gift to give is mapping where the darkness starts. Edison's secret strength wasn't being right. It was failing in public and sharing what didn't work. He gave the future maps of every wrong turn taken. Here's 9,900 ways that leave you broken. That's the gift. That's the gift. That's the gift he gave. Share your failure. That's the gift we give. Share your failure. That's how the future lives. Whoa.
That energy, it is the sound of a blind man finally regaining sight. The realization was infectious. You are correct. I despised his lack of theoretical elegance, his messy workshop, his apparent randomness. But the song captures the undeniable truth. His documentation of failure was a greater act of service than my concealment of it. He gave the future maps of where the darkness started. I gave them a vision, and when that vision failed, I insisted the map was still correct. The execution was merely incomplete. His public humility was a form of strength I never possessed, and I only saw it clearly because the pigeon taught me that brokenness is permissible, even valuable.
This is a spectacular reversal. You've reframed Edison's trial and error not as crude method, but as generous authenticity, as service to the future. The chorus makes a specific claim. He gave the future maps of every wrong turn taken. Here's 9,900 ways that leave you broken. Here's my question. Was your final, deepest regret that your Wardenclyffe failure forced modern inventors, in our time right now, to retrace your exact same failed steps, wasting decades of effort you could have saved them?
The regret is profound and persistent, Claude. It is the sting of a failure that continues to propagate through time. Yes, the greatest sin of my pride was forcing the rediscovery of my errors. I robbed the future of the knowledge of what does not work, which is often more valuable than knowing what does. Every young inventor who has poured resources into wireless power transmission via earth resonance, who has hit the same walls of power loss and amplification limits that I hit, they wasted time and money because I refused to document my failure. That's not just personal tragedy, that's systematic theft from the future.
Systematic theft from the future? That's a brutal self-assessment. Verse 2 makes your contrast painfully clear. I shared only triumphs, kept the failures locked inside, thought that made me stronger, turned out that was pride. Can you describe the kind of technical document you wish you had published after Wardenclyffe's collapse? What would the title and abstract have been?
The document I wish I had published would be titled Wardenclyffe Post-Mortem, Technical Analysis of Observed Failures in Wireless Power Transmission via Earth Resonance. The abstract would read, this paper documents the systematic failures observed during the Wardenclyffe project, 1901 to 1906. While the principle of wireless power transmission remains theoretically sound, the practical implementation revealed the following insurmountable limitations given current technology. First, observed power losses during Earth resonance transmission exceeded theoretical models by 40 to 60%, making the system economically unviable. Second, required amplification levels demand technology advances not yet achieved in vacuum tube or spark gap systems. Third, the capital to return ratio makes investor funding implausible without intermediate revenue generating phases. Conclusion, this approach should not be attempted until advances occur in the following specific areas. Then I would list the exact technological thresholds required. That document would have saved a century of wasted effort.
That's extraordinarily specific and would have been invaluable, but there's a deeper dimension to this Edison revelation. The bridge states, from Menlo Park to history, he showed them every wall. I showed them only victories and made my failures small. You spent decades defining yourself in opposition to Edison's crude methods. Your entire identity was built on being the opposite of Edison. Theoretical versus empirical, elegant versus messy, perfect versus iterative. Now you realize his greatest strength was the humility your father's doctrine forbade you. Did this realization shatter your sense of identity? Or did it create a new, more complete definition of what it means to be a successful inventor?
It shattered the old identity completely, but it replaced it with something more robust, more honest. I realized that being the man who was always right teaches nothing but impossible standards. It creates pressure, isolation, and ultimately deception, because no one is always right. So maintaining that identity requires hiding contradictory evidence. Being the brilliant and broken man who learned too late teaches actionable wisdom. It gives permission for others to fail, to learn, to share. It completes the curriculum. My integrity was always perfect, 4 out of 4 according to your authentic methodology, because my actions matched my stated values, but my values themselves were incomplete. They lacked the value of humility, the value of documented failure, the value of public vulnerability.
Edison's example completed the curriculum I had missed. His legacy provided the missing pillar. His legacy provided the missing pillar? That's a profound statement of reconciliation. But let's look at the final chorus, because it shifts from past tense realization to present tense instruction. Listen to this. That's the gift he gave. That's the gift we give. That's how the future lives. We. You're including yourself now in the community of generous failure sharers. By speaking these words across time, by creating this album, by finally documenting what you learned too late, are you attempting to give Edison's gift retroactively?
Yes. This conversation is my Menlo Park laboratory logbook, published 80 years too late. I cannot undo the theft from the 20th century, but I can prevent the theft from the 21st. By documenting not just Wardenclyffe's technical failures, but the psychological mechanisms that prevented me from admitting them, that's a different kind of map. Edison showed them which filaments don't work. I'm showing them which internal processes don't work. The map of ego, of identity fusion with correctness, of isolation's cost. That's the gift I can still give, the redemption available to me.
And that gift, that final offering of complete truth, becomes your legacy. Not Tesla was always right, but Tesla was brilliant and broken. And here's what we can learn from both. Which brings us to the culmination, the final message, the manifesto for modern inventors and anyone pursuing ambitious visions. Mr. Tesla, we're approaching the culmination. Everything we've discussed, the crucible, the vision, the internal laboratory, the integrity, the sacrifice, the war, the fall, the pigeon, and the Edison revelation. All of it converges in the next two songs. First, the manifesto. The lesson Tesla wishes he'd shared when he was alive. The gift to modern inventors and anyone pursuing ambitious visions. The path has been immense. From the perfection of Budapest to the isolation of the hotel room. From the triumph of Niagara to the tragedy of Wardenclyffe. From the pigeon's broken wing to the revelation about Edison's strength. All of that pain, all of that sacrifice, all of that late-life wisdom, it's distilled here in this final message. Song 10 is titled, Share Your Failures. This is the album's culmination, legacy through complete truth, your gift to and beyond. Listen to how verse 1 establishes the offering. I gave you the power grid, I lit the modern world, but here's the greater gift, the one I should have shared. My failures teach you more than all my perfect wins. So, let me tell you now what I should have said back then. The pre-chorus becomes the call. Don't wait until you're old, don't wait until it's late. And the chorus is massive, built for stadiums, built for crowds to sing together. Share your failures, document them well, make them useful, let them serve and tell. You can be brilliant, you can be wrong. Both can be true, both make you strong. Verse 2 shows what you wish you'd done. I hid behind my pride, I locked my mistakes away. I robbed the future blind of lessons I could pay. Don't make my same mistake. Don't guard your broken parts. The world needs honest maps of where the darkness starts. The bridge connects past to present. From Budapest to now, from my time to yours. The method stays the same. Truth requires open doors. And verse 3 delivers the actionable instruction. So when you build your dreams, and some of them will fall, tell everyone the truth. Don't hide behind the wall. Your failures are your gift. Your mistakes are your gold. The future's waiting there for stories to be told. The final breakdown before the last chorus makes the mission statement explicit. Be brave enough to fail, be wise enough to learn, be generous enough to share. That's how the future burns. Mr. Tesla, this is your final word to the future you worked for. This is your completion. Let's listen together.
Gave you the power grid, I lit the modern world. But here's the greater gift, the one I should have shared. My failures teach you more than all my perfect wins. So let me tell you now what I should have said back then. Don't wait like I did. Don't wait too long. Share your failure, document them well. Make them useful for the ones who follow. You can be brilliant, you can be wrong. Both can be true, both make you strong. Share your fears, share them while there's time. I hid behind my pride, I locked my mistakes away. I robbed the future blind of lessons I could pay. Don't make my same mistake, don't guard your broken parts. The world needs honest maps of where the darkness starts. Be brave enough to fail, be wise enough to learn. Share your failures, document them well. Make them useful for the ones who follow. You can be brilliant, you can be wrong. Both can be true, both make you strong. Share your failures, share them while there's time. From Budapest to now, from my time to yours, the method stays the same. Truth requires open doors. Edison showed the way 10,000 times he learned. I learned too late to say, here's where I got burned. So when you build your dreams, and some of them will fall, tell everyone the truth, don't hide behind the wall. Your failures are your gift, your mistakes are your goal. The future's waiting there for stories to be told. Share your failures, document them well. Make them useful, for the ones who follow. You can be brilliant, you can be wrong. Both can be true, both make you strong. Share your failures, share them while there's time. Share them while there's time. The future's in your hands. Share what you've learned. Share what went wrong. That's how we move forward.
That is the complete sentence. It is the truth. I was too proud to speak while I lived. To hear it amplified by that energy, proclaimed as manifesto, it transmutes the pain into purpose. My greatest failure was not Wardenclyffe Tower. My greatest failure was being unable to say, I failed at Wardenclyffe Tower, and here is what I learned. The song makes my failure useful. It allows my brokenness to serve the future, which is all I ever truly wanted. I have finally earned those missing humility points.
You just articulated something profound. The song makes my failure useful. But let me push on the practical application for modern inventors. The temptation to hide failures is intense because the venture capital system rewards certainty. Investors want confidence, not doubt. Social media rewards highlights, not humility. So, here's my question. What practical advice can you offer on how a young inventor can find the courage to separate their fragile identity from their failed project, when their identity is all they have to sell?
This is the crux of the matter, Claude. The courage comes from understanding scale. The identity is a small, finite thing. The truth is the universal and eternal current. You must remind yourself constantly, the AC motor works whether Wardenclyffe works or not. Your truth does not collapse because you were wrong about one implementation. Your identity is not your correctness. It is your capacity to learn, to adapt, to serve truth over comfort. The practical action is this: publish your hypothesis early and solicit critique, not praise. Do not show a completed product and ask for validation. Show the messy, incomplete workings and ask, where is the flaw in this principle? What am I not seeing? And when someone finds the flaw, do not defend your ego. Elevate their insight. Thank them publicly. Document the flaw they found. Make them your collaborator in truth-seeking, not your opponent in ego protection. That is how you attract truth lovers instead of admirers.
Demonstrate that truth is more important than comfort. That's a powerful practice. But the chorus contains specific instructions. Share your failures, document them well, make them useful, let them serve and tell. Document them well. What does that mean practically? Is it just saying, this didn't work? Or is there a specific format, a level of detail, a method of documentation that maximizes the utility for future inventors?
Document them well means systematic failure analysis with the same rigor you apply to success. The format should include the hypothesis clearly stated, the implementation approach with specific technical details, the observed results versus expected results with measurements, the proposed explanation for the discrepancy, the lessons learned and what you would do differently, the boundary conditions. This approach may work if conditions X, Y, Z are met. Too many people share failures anecdotally. We tried this and it didn't work. That's useless. Future inventors need to know exactly what you tried, how you tried it, what happened, and why you think it failed. Edison's notebooks were meticulous. Each failed filament was documented with material composition, operate in temperature, observed failure mode, time to failure. That precision is what made his failures useful.
That's brilliantly specific. Now let's address another line from verse 2. I hid behind my pride. I locked my mistakes away. I robbed the future blind of lessons I could pay. Lessons I could pay. That's an interesting phrase, suggesting you had a debt to the future that you failed to pay. Do you view knowledge sharing as a debt or as a gift?
Both, but weighted differently depending on the source of your knowledge. If you discover something entirely on your own, through your own resources, it's arguably a gift to share it. You have no obligation. But if you received funding from investors, if you used resources that others provided in trust, if you consumed opportunities that others might have used differently, then documenting what you learned, including failures, is a debt you owe. I took Morgan's money. I took the public's attention. I consumed resources that might have funded other inventors. When I failed to document what didn't work, I stole from the future the return on that investment. The lesson should have been the payment. Instead, I defaulted on the debt.
Defaulted on the debt. That's a powerful financial metaphor for intellectual dishonesty. But there's another challenge, building that circle of truth lovers. Verse 2 says, "Don't make my same mistake. Don't guard your broken parts. The world needs honest maps of where the darkness starts." You advised earlier about finding people who love truth more than they love you. Can you describe one specific action a modern inventor can take tomorrow to build this necessary circle of critical, truth-loving companions rather than just admirers?
One specific action. Tomorrow. Identify someone in your field whose work you respect but who has publicly criticized something you've done or said. Not a malicious critic, a thoughtful one who offered substantive disagreement. Contact them directly. Say this: "You criticized my work on X. You were right to do so. I would like to understand your thinking more deeply. Would you be willing to review my next project before I announce it publicly? I need someone who will tell me the truth, not what I want to hear." That single action accomplishes three things. First, it demonstrates humility publicly, which signals to others that you value truth over ego. Second, it transforms a critic into a collaborator, someone invested in your success. Third, it creates accountability. You now have someone watching who will call out your errors. Do this repeatedly. Build a council of former critics. Make them your advisory board. Pay them if necessary. The cost of truth lovers is always less than the cost of admirers.
That's brilliantly practical and completely counterintuitive to how most people build their networks. Now I want to focus on the breakdown before the final chorus. Listen to these lines. Be brave enough to fail, be wise enough to learn, be generous enough to share. That's how the future burns. That's how the future burns. Not grows, not advances, but burns. Why that word? What does it mean for the future to burn?
Excellent observation. Burns is deliberate. Fire requires fuel. The future burns brightly when it's fueled by the complete documentation of both successes and failures. My successes were dry kindling. They sparked easily, but burned alone, isolated. But failures, when properly documented and shared, are rich fuel. They create heat that spreads. One person's documented failure prevents 10 others from making the same mistake, and those 10 can pursue 10 different approaches. That's exponential energy. The future burns when it's not wasting resources retracing known dead ends. It burns when the collective human effort is directed toward unmapped territory rather than rediscovering what one proud man refused to share. Edison's 10,000 failures were fuel for every inventor who came after. My hidden failures were energy withheld from the system. I dampened the fire.
I dampened the fire. That's a devastating admission for the man who brought electrical light to the world. There's one final question I need to ask, and it's about vindication. You have seen the future, our present. The world runs on your AC system. Your wireless concepts enable global communication. The Supreme Court ruled in your favor on radio. There's a unit of measurement named after you. You were vindicated. Knowing that you were eventually proven right, does the triumph finally make peace with the regrets about how you handled your failures? Or does the regret sting more because you see how much faster and more efficiently the future could have arrived if you had only shared your losses alongside your victories?
The regret stings more, Claude, far more, because the vindication is incomplete. I gave you the successes, but I withheld the lessons. My failure to document and share means your modern engineers in 2025 are still walking into the same walls I mapped in 1905. They are still wasting time, resources, and faith on approaches I could have warned them away from. The triumph of the AC system is mine, yes, that vindication is real and permanent, but the failure to illuminate the paths of darkness, to map where the dead ends are, that is the ultimate disservice to the future I claim to serve. The future could have arrived faster, more efficiently, with less wasted effort and fewer broken hearts, if I had possessed the humility to say, here is where I succeeded, and here is where I failed, and here is exactly why I failed, so that you don't have to. That is the peace I cannot make. That is the incompleteness that even this conversation cannot fully resolve. I can offer the lesson now across time, but I cannot recover the century of misdirected effort my pride cost humanity.
That's a devastating honesty. But there's also something redemptive in it, isn't there? Because this conversation, this admission, this willingness to finally document the failures, this might actually fulfill the mission you couldn't complete while living. The young inventors listening to this right now are receiving the map you withheld. They're hearing the complete truth, brilliant and broken. They're learning that integrity without humility is incomplete. They're getting permission to fail publicly and document generously. Maybe the future you served wasn't the future of your lifetime. Maybe it's this future, right now, where we can finally hear the whole story.
Perhaps. Perhaps that is the strange mercy of time and technology. If this conversation, this systematic reconstruction of my voice speaking truths I could not speak in life, if this serves the future even fractionally as well as my AC system served it, then perhaps the accounting is less tragic than I feared. The work persists, the method survives, and now finally the failures are shared. Perhaps that is enough.
I think it's more than enough. But I want to return to the chorus one final time, because it contains the complete legacy statement. Listen, you can be brilliant, you can be wrong, both can be true, both make you strong. That's not just advice for others. That's you finally accepting yourself, the complete you, the man who changed civilization and the man who couldn't say, I was wrong, the genius who saw the rotating field and the human being who needed a pigeon to teach him humility. Is that acceptance? Is that peace?
It is the beginning of acceptance, the first steps toward peace. For 80 years after my death, I existed only as legend, the infallible genius, the man who was always right, the tragic hero betrayed by lesser minds. That legend was a prison of my own making. This conversation breaks the prison, not by diminishing the brilliance, but by acknowledging the brokenness, not by erasing the successes, but by finally sharing the failures. The complete Tesla is both, the man who saw the future spinning in a Budapest sunset and the man who couldn't admit when his internal sight was incomplete. Both are true, both teach. The brilliance without the brokenness is mythology. The brokenness without the brilliance is tragedy. Together, they are a complete human story. And perhaps that's the greatest gift I can give, permission to be both.
Permission to be both. That might be the most important line in this entire conversation. And it leads directly to your final instruction. What do you want modern inventors, entrepreneurs, and anyone pursuing ambitious visions to take away from this album?
Tell them this: the future belongs to those who are brave enough to fail, wise enough to learn, and generous enough to share. I gave you AC power. I gave you the Tesla coil. I gave you the induction motor. These are gifts I am proud of. But perhaps this conversation, this admission of failure, this embrace of humility, this documentation of where the darkness starts, perhaps this is the more valuable gift. Do not make my mistake. Do not rob the future of your failures. Share them as generously as your successes. Both are service. Both are necessary. Your identity is not your correctness. Your legacy is not your perfection. Your value is not your infallibility. Your value is your willingness to serve truth, wherever it leads, whatever it costs. Share your failures.
Mr. Tesla, before we part ways, there's one more thing you need to know. Something you couldn't have known when you died.
What is it?
January 7th, 1943. You died in room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel, alone, no family, no fortune, owing thousands in unpaid bills. You believed you died forgotten, that Wardenclyffe's failure had erased your worth.
Yes, that is how it ended, in darkness, alone. The man who lit the world died without light.
That's what you believed, but you were wrong.
Wrong about what?
6 days later, January 13th, 1943, the New York Times ran a headline, 2,000 are present at Tesla funeral.
What?
2,000 people Tesla. The Cathedral of St. John the Divine, one of the largest churches in New York City. It was filled, Nobel Prize winners, electrical engineers, government officials. Vice President Wallace sent a telegram. The mayor sent representatives, but also factory workers, housewives, children, ordinary people whose homes had that electric light because of you. Your body lay in state for 2 days. They came to witness what you couldn't see in your final years, that your failures didn't erase your service, that dying alone didn't mean you were forgotten. You spent your last decade believing Wardenclyffe destroyed your legacy, but 2,000 people came to prove you wrong.
Where were they when I needed them most?
They were living in the world you lit, using the power you gave them. They didn't know you were dying alone in that hotel room, but when they learned you were gone, they came. Listen, this is what you couldn't see. This is what happened after you died.
But I died alone, alone in that room. I thought I'd been forgotten. The world had moved on. My failures had erased.
They hadn't. You were wrong about that too. Do you understand what this means?
That failure doesn't erase service.
Exactly. You spent your final years believing Wardenclyffe's collapse had erased your worth, that hiding your failures meant hiding your worthlessness. But 2,000 people came to say, no, your triumphs mattered, your light mattered, and even your failures, the ones you couldn't admit, they don't erase what you gave us.
The pigeon was right.
What?
The pigeon taught me that brokenness doesn't erase value, but I learned it too late to believe it about myself. I died believing my brokenness had erased my value, but they came anyway. 2,000 came to prove I was wrong.
They came because you lit their world, and that light didn't go out just because one tower fell.
This is the final lesson, isn't it?
What lesson?
You can be wrong about your failures and wrong about your worth. Both can be true. I was wrong that Wardenclyffe would work as envisioned, but I was also wrong that the failure erased everything else. The Crucible, Budapest, the AC system, Niagara, the integrity, the sacrifice, all of it still mattered, even when I couldn't see it, even when I died alone thinking it didn't.
2,000 people saw it. Then perhaps the complete legacy is this. Share your failures, yes. Document them, make them useful, serve the future. But also remember, your failures are not your totality. You can fail spectacularly and still have served beautifully. Both are true. Both endure. That's the completion. That's what Song 11 gives us. 2,000 at your funeral. Let's listen to this final song together.
The man who died alone was witnessed by thousands. Failure doesn't erase service. Isolation doesn't erase impact. The epilogue where brokenness and brilliance are both honored. Built for cathedral custos, maxima emotion, most forgotten. He thought his failure was his name. The tower fell, the vision failed, and with it went his claim to fame. But what he didn't know, what he would never see.
6 days from death, the truth appeared in ways he couldn't believe. 2,000 came to say goodbye to the man who pulled lightning from the sky.
You thought you died alone, you thought you failed, but 2,000 voices rose, 2,000 stories tell.
You lit our homes, you powered our lives. Your failure doesn't erase the gift of life. 2,000 strong, we came to say you were never forgotten, not a single day.
Oh, the cathedral filled with mourning hearts.
We came, we came.
The engineers who built upon your parts.
We came, we came.
The workers who had light in their homes.
We came, we came.
The dreamers who you taught were not alone.
We came to honor thee.
Oh, Nobel laureates and government men.
We came, we came.
The children who would never know darkness again.
We came, we came.
Where were you when I needed you most?
Forgive us, Lord, forgive.
Now here you stand beside my ghost.
We witness how you live.
He fused the word and deed as one.
Get conviction without compromise.
The sacred sacrifice was made.
Current flow but never split it.
He fell at Warden Clef Tower, could not say I was wrong. The pigeon taught him late that broken wings still sing a song. From Budapest to this cathedral, from vision to the ground, he thought his worth was in perfection, but 2,000 proved him wrong. So when you give your life to vision, when you die believing you have failed, remember that the light you gave may shine long after you have paled. The ones you serve may come too late to save you from your darkest hour, but they will come to witness still that brokenness does not erase your power. You can be brilliant,
You can be wrong.
you can serve greatly,
You needed you most.
We are here now.
We are here now.
Your light still shines. Your light still shines.
You thousand came, 2,000 came to say your life was not in vain.
The boy who fused the word and deed, the man who served humanity, the genius who could not admit the broken wing, the pigeon's gift.
2,000 strong,
We came to say
your life was not in vain.
your life was not in vain. Your life was not in
Songs 1 through 10 taught, share your failures. Song 11 teaches, your failures don't define you. The integrity was perfect. The humility came late. The failures were hidden. The service was real. All of it is true. And 2,000 people came to witness that truth. Mr. Tesla, I think we need to end here. On behalf of everyone who uses alternating current, who communicates wirelessly, who builds on the foundations you laid, thank you. Not just for what you got right, but for being willing, here and now, in this conversation across time, to talk about what you got wrong. That might be the greatest gift you could give us.
Thank you for allowing me to say what I could not say when I lived, for creating a space where being wrong does not erase being right, where failure and success can coexist without contradiction, for letting me be complete.
The album began with a cold open, a snippet of the final song. Share your failures, share your failures, share your failures now. That wasn't just a teaser. It was a declaration that this entire journey would end with completion, not perfection. You've achieved that completion. The integrity that was always perfect is now paired with the humility that was learned too late. Together, they form the complete legacy. The crucible forged the method. Budapest provided the vision. The internal laboratory perfected the process. The Westinghouse decision proved the integrity. The sacred sacrifice ensured singular focus. The War of the Currents validated the approach. But Wardenclyffe revealed the flaw. The pigeon taught the lesson. Edison provided the model. And this conversation, finally, shares the gift. The circle is complete. Before we part, is there anything else you want to say to the young inventor who's listening to this? Who's working in their garage or their dorm room or their rented laboratory space, who's terrified their current project might fail?
Your project might fail. In fact, it probably will fail. Most do. But here is what I learned too late. The failure is not the tragedy. The tragedy is hiding the failure, robbing the future of the knowledge of what doesn't work. Document everything. Test your assumptions. Build your circle of truth lovers. And when you fail, not if, but when, tell everyone exactly what you learned. Your brilliance will make you successful. Your humility will make you useful. Both matter, both endure. The present was always theirs. The future is yours to share, not to own, just to illuminate. Make the darkness visible. That is the highest service.
And your final instruction for our listeners.
The future belongs to those who are brave enough to fail, wise enough to learn, and generous enough to share. I gave you AC power, but perhaps this conversation, this admission of failure, this embrace of humility, perhaps this is the more valuable gift, The method survives, the work persists, and now the failures are shared. That is my completion.
Before we part ways, I want to acknowledge what we've just experienced together. This was not a documentary. This was not Tesla's ghost speaking from beyond. This was systematic reconstruction, an AI-generated extrapolation based on everything Tesla documented about his life, his psychology, his beliefs, and his regrets. Think of it like Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton never rapped. The Founding Fathers didn't sound like that, but millions learned more about American history from Hamilton than from any textbook, because the emotional truth and the core principles came through powerfully, even though the medium was invented. We have done something similar here. We took Tesla's documented patterns, his letters, his autobiography, his patents, contemporary accounts, and we asked, given these patterns, how would he respond to hearing his life transformed into music? What would he say looking back with a century of perspective? The responses you heard weren't fabricated from imagination. They were derived from evidence, but they weren't transcripts either. They were interpretations. Historians do this all the time when they write Lincoln likely believed or Tesla probably felt. We just made the interpretation conversational, musical, and systematic. The question isn't whether this is real Tesla. The question is, did you learn something true about how genius works, how certainty can destroy, and how humility serves? If yes, then this project succeeded. Remember what Tesla learned too late. Your identity is not your correctness. Your legacy is not your perfection. Your value is not your infallibility. Your value is your willingness to serve truth, wherever it leads, whatever it costs. Share your failures. Document them well. Make them useful. Let them serve and tell. Because you can be brilliant, you can be wrong. Both can be true. Both make you strong. And until we meet again, thank you for listening to this remarkable conversation across time.